The Northman symbolism, mythology, and mysticism, a refreshing take of a Viking tale in the entertainment media. The opening shot of the Northman from director Robert Eggers is of a raven in mid-flight. The camera soon pans over and pulls out to show us the frigid island. The raven is headed toward along with a trip of ships. It's the first of many beautiful shots in the film, but it's also established the film focus on religious symbolism and mysticism. Ravens have long been associated with the Norse god Odin, who is the object of worship of Prince Amleth, played by Alexander Skarsgård as an adult, and Oscar Novak as a child, and his family in the film. Ravens will continue to play an important role throughout the film as do the religious practices and mystical traditions of the various characters we encounter. Before we get into what brings us here, here's a brief summary of the film. The Northman is an adaptation of a Scandinavian legend of Amleth, which was also adapted by Shakespeare into Hamlet and by Disney into The Lion King. Amleth is a young prince who witnessed the murder of his father, King Arvandil, played by Ethan Hawke, an abduction of his mother, the Queen, played by Nicole Kidman, at the hands of his uncle, Folnir, played by Claes Bang. Amleth pledges to avenge his father, save his mother, and kill his uncle, and the rest of the movie follows an adult Amleth as he tries to make good on his vows. It's a ferocious and uncompromising look at the brutal lifestyle of the Vikings, told through Amleth's eyes. While the epic battle sequences and gruesome violence have nabbed most of the headlines when discussing the Northman, it's the painstaking detail paid to the religious traditions and mystical practices of the people from that era that really set the film apart from other historical epics. Very early in the film is a scene in which King Arvadil guides Amleth through a ceremony conducted by Heimir the Fool, as played by Willem Dafoe, to impart some knowledge onto Amleth about his duties and his hair. The two channel the spirit of wolves and ingest psychedelic seeds in order to have a mystical experience. Per Eggers, the director of the film, the ceremony itself was experienced by him and his co-writer, but all of the items and substances used in the ceremony were pulled from the historical records and archaeological sites. The most visual striking moment from the scene is when Amleth touches a wound on his father's abdomen and has a vision where he sees his father's beating heart and circulatory system morph into a version of Isgradil, a sacred tree at the center of the cosmos in Norse mythology, from whose branches hang all of the male members of the lineage with himself at the top. It's a breathtaking visualization of the reverence of one's ancestors and the importance of hereditary monarchy in this society. It's also a motif that will crop up again later. Coming into contact with the familial blood triggers visions of both his ancestors and future progeny attached to the psychedelic tree. It's intentionally ambiguous if these are true mystical experiences or merely the effects of these psychedelic substances, combined with deeply held beliefs. It's left up to the viewer to make that determination. Another important theme that runs through the film that I mentioned earlier is Amleth's devotion to Odin. He's a true believer in every sense, and it greatly impacts his life and decisions. The first time we see Amleth as an adult is as part of a mercenary unit of berserkers. Berserkers were elite warriors of Odin during the Viking Age who some believe channel the spirits of bears or wolves on the battlefield. In the Northman, Amleth wears a wolf skin as a cowl and little else while fighting. There is another incredible scene prior to the battle where the berserkers hold a ceremonial war dance to get into an ecstatic trance in preparation for the coming fight. It is just theoretical at this time as to if this is how berserkers enter their ecstatic state of fury or for some gnosis, but it is one of the more widely accepted theories. Amleth's devotion to Odin is paid off much later in the film as well, when he is being held captive by Fjolnir, who happens to be a follower of Freyr instead of Odin. While left strung up and unattended, an unkindness of ravens enters the structure and pecks away at his bindings to free him. Once Amleth is cut loose, the bearded figure of Odin appears standing over him, with a raven perched on each shoulder. In Norse mythology, Odin has two ravens named Hugin and Munin, literally Thaw and Mine when translated into English, who travels the world gathering information for the god. It is once again left ambiguous as to whether Amleth was actually saved by Odin and his ravens or if he was hallucinating. But Fjolnir and his men are startled by ravens flying out of the doorway when they go back to check on their now missing prisoner. One important aspect we need to touch and was the depiction of Valkyries and Valhalla in the Northman. In Norse mythology, there are two separate realms one can go to in the afterlife following their deaths. One is Hell. Hell is reserved for those who die of natural causes such as sickness, old age, etc. The other realm is Valhalla. Valhalla is the destination for those who die in battle. This was the preferred destination for warriors from that time. The place is typically described as a great hall in Asgard, ruled over by Odin. When a warrior is slain in battle, he is whisked away to Valhalla by a female entity called the Valkyrie. Both Valkyries and Valhalla appear in the Northman, and it is one of the most impressive visual spectacles in the entire film. We first see them when Amleth is freed by Odin, and it appears that Amleth may have succumbed to his wounds. That turns out to be a feint, but Amleth is eventually taken to Valhalla by a Valkyrie at the end of the film. Valhalla appears as a great glowing green doorway in the night sky. I'm not doing nearly enough justice, but trust me, it is utterly magnificent. The Valkyrie who carries Amleth to Valhalla, played by Ineta Sluseid, is depicted as a warrior riding a white horse and adorned in full battle regalia. Her eyes are an inhuman pale blue, and her teeth had grooves chiseled into them and filled with black pigment. This is apparently something that some Vikings actually did to their teeth to appear more menacing. I can testify that it certainly had the desired effect. Watching the Valkyrie ascend the sky in the night to Valhalla with Amleth, it was a beautiful, fitting image for the Northman to conclude with. There are plenty of other examples of religious practices and mysticism throughout the film, including some Slavic practices. After the slow rise of interest in Norse mythology with series like Netflix Vikings, Valhalla, and video games like God of War, Eggers saw his opportunity to bring the old script to life. Nordic sorcery and mysticism are the Northman driving forces and are used by Eggers to push the plot forward in a practical and tactical manner. After being raised by a group of murderous Vikings, Amleth encounters a sorceress who reminds him of his purpose and share a prophecy. Many religions and cultures have their own form of sorcery, like prophets in Christianity and shamans in Native American cultures. The Northman sorcerer, played by the Icelandic musician Björk, practiced a form of Scandinavian Viking Age magic called satyr. Satyr was far more prevalent during the Scandinavian Iron Age, but began to dwindle in subsequent centuries as Christianity slowly grew influence throughout the world. This slow death of traditional Viking practices is captured brilliantly in moments prepared throughout the film by Eggers and his team. While a satyr was usually a female practice, the film does have a male practitioner who tells Amleth of the Nightblade. Men practicing satyr was a cultural taboo that resulted in most of them being cast out of their villages. I personally enjoy the use of psychedelic substances like mushrooms for both ritual ceremonies as well as part of the substances they use to confuse the guards when Amleth prepares to attack them. The influence of magic, symbolism, and mysticism on Vikings lore through the eyes of the protagonist in the Northman offers a refreshing look at the influence and importance this had throughout the history of this civilization, which can be compared to others from Native American beliefs, as well as the use of rune letters used on each opening title referring to this important form of language, symbology, and divination. For me, The Northman should be and must be a watch movie for any person interested in the occult, symbology, and mysticism, and wants to have an experience watching a new different form of movie driven back again by an archetypical character and far from the commercial mainstream entertainment cookie cut type of movies with hidden political and woke agendas we are so full of these days. I hope you like this video, my friends. Please remember to subscribe to support the channel. Thank you, and 93. Take care.